When you're a professional wrestler, not everything goes to plan in a match. The most logical and professional way to combat mistakes is by pretending they never happened and simply transitioning into the next spot. However, over the years, certain wrestlers in WWE have thrown legit temper tantrums in the ring when things aren't going to plan. Which times were they? Well, join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 9 WWE wrestlers who threw a legit tantrum in the ring. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Also check out Wrestlelamia.co.uk and our non-wrestling channel, Incredible. Number 9. Shawn Michaels at Wrestlemania 12. Now, although HBK's Shawn Michaels is widely considered to be one of the greatest performers of all time, during the 90s he had a defined and established reputation for being very difficult to work with. This was on full display at Wrestlemania 12. HBK was wrestling Bret Hart in an acclaimed Iron Man match for the WWE title, and during the match HBK would take exception to the positioning of the cameraman. HBK had a legitimate temper tantrum and decided to break character in the match, jump down from the apron, and curse at the cameraman for being in the wrong position. This interaction seemed to alter HBK's mindset for the rest of the match, and he seemed to spend most of the final stages of the match looking over at the cameraman to check what position he was in. Let's also not forget WrestleMania 11, where he actually put his hands on a cameraman, throwing him right out of the way. Sid even had to calm him down. Number 8. Too Cool at Sunday Night Heat, November 8, 1998. Now, the match finish is perhaps the most important moment of the match. It's the thing that most fans remember, and botching this can seriously impact the quality of the overall match. Match finish botches do happen, but most wrestlers, especially in WWE, are told to sell it as if it was completely legitimate. However, on an episode of Sunday Night Heat in 1998, Too Cool, who were using the name Too Much, couldn't keep their cool and had an outburst when the match finish went completely wrong. The duo were facing the Job Squad, and the finish of the match saw Too Much about to perform a top rope move on Hardcore Holly. Abruptly, Holly got out of the move and rolled up the future Scotty 2 Hotty for the victory. This wasn't the planned finish, and both members of Too Much were quite rightly furious. The future Grandmaster Sexay, who was still perched on the top rope, would scream that wasn't the match finish as he looked at Holly in utter rage. WWE quickly moved on to another segment of the show following the botch, which was probably the right call. Number 7. Perry Satin, WWE Metal. Perry Satin had a decent career, but a certain infamous match back in 2001 gave Satin a bad reputation for several years. This match was against Mike Bell, and it took place on an episode of Metal. The match was supposed to be a traditional match, as it was custom for shows like Metal and Sunday Night Heat at the time to just feature a few jobber matches. During the match itself, Bell would botch several moves, including a botched hip toss which resulted in Satin landing right on his head. But instead of carrying on like a professional, Satin snapped. He had a violent, borderline psychotic tantrum which ultimately cost him his push and credibility in the company. Satin would deliver real punches to Bell's face, and he would throw Bell through the ropes with so much force that he landed right on his head on the outside. Satin continued his assault with vicious moves which targeted Bell's head and neck area, and it's believed that Satin's manager Terry Runnels had to inform him to tone it down a lot. Number 6. Eddie Guerrero at SummerSlam 2005. One of the most unusual yet entertaining feuds in WWE history was the 2005 feud between the legendary superstars Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. The two would wrestle at the SummerSlam pay-per-view in a ladder match for the custody of Dominic Mysterio. This was a unique stipulation that thankfully hasn't been repeated since. But the planned finish was to involve Vicky Guerrero, who portrayed a conflicted neutral role in the feud, and it was to turn on Eddie and push him off the ladder so Mysterio could win. However, during the closing moments of the match, Vicky was informed to wait until it was safe to run out, as Mysterio was out of position and there could have been a serious injury if Vicky pushed him off the ladder. Nevertheless, this information wasn't given to Eddie, and he proceeded to have a temper tantrum right in the ring. He would scream,
"And look at Eddie! Frustrated!
Thankfully, the two incredible talents managed to recover and finish the match in a decisive and satisfying manner. Number 5. Rico at Survivor Series 2002. Matches involving tables are usually chaotic and are prone to mishaps and miscommunications. The opening match at Survivor Series in 2002 was an elimination tables match featuring Bubba Ray Dudley, Spike, and Jeff Hardy taking on 3-Minute Warning. In the match, Rico had a verbal outburst at Hardy, who had completely forgotten his spot. This occurred when Rico climbed to the top rope to deliver a moonsault, but Rico wasn't supposed to hit the moonsault in the planned spot, as Hardy was supposed to knock him down from the turnbuckle. However, Rico would end up awkwardly waiting in position with Hardy nowhere to be found. Fans could visibly see Rico's body language change, and in the end, he'd had enough and would yell out, "Come on, Jeff, goddammit!" This verbal tantrum was so obvious that WWE proceeded to edit it out of WWE Network replays of the show, and the same can't be said for the future version of the match. Number 4. Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 20 and 34. Brock Lesnar has a love-hate relationship with fans throughout his career. At WrestleMania 20, Lesnar was exiting the WWE along with Goldberg, and the fans decided to turn on both men by audibly booing everything they did. Lesnar would get increasingly frustrated in the match, and by the time he was about to be stunned by Stone Cold Steve Austin, he decided to flip the bird to the MSG crowd. Fast forward to 2018, and Lesnar and Roman Reigns had one of the worst WrestleMania main events of all time. The fans loathed the match, and Lesnar wasn't pleased with how the match went. Lesnar would get actively annoyed in the match due to the fans failing to react positively, and this temper tantrum escalated backstage when Lesnar threw his Universal title at Vince McMahon in an act of rage. Number 3. Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam 1996. When WWE decided to sign Vader in 96, the idea was that Vader was going to be the new top heel in the company. WWE would execute this vision at SummerSlam as Vader would face Shawn Michaels for the WWE title. The issue was that HBK wasn't used to working with a talent as stiff as Vader, and there was a huge contrast to styles that didn't exactly go in Vader's favor. There was also a massive issue in relation to their communication, as this could be seen when Vader failed to move for a top rope elbow attempt. HBK, being HBK, decided to have a tantrum in the ring following the botched spot, and he would scream at Vader and even kick him right in the face. HBK was lucky that Vader didn't react with equal force, as Vader is considered to be one of the toughest men in the history of wrestling. This tantrum from HBK didn't stop after the match ended, as it was reported that he was responsible for getting Vader's push cancelled, and it was apparently HBK who made Vince McMahon lose faith in Vader's abilities. Number 2. Randy Orton on Raw in 2010. Now, by late 2009, fans had grown tired of WWE pushing the same stars over and over, and WWE knew that they needed to create brand new superstars. One of the stars WWE pushed was Kofi Kingston. Kingston would enter into a feud with Randy Orton, and he even pinned Orton clean. This push was going to culminate with Kingston winning the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 26, but sadly this push was cancelled following Orton having one of the most infamous tantrums in WWE history. In the match on Raw in 2010 between Orton, Kingston and John Cena, the finish of the match went completely wrong, as Kingston was supposed to be pinned following a punt kick. However, Kingston got up early, meaning Orton had to improvise and use an RKO. As soon as Orton's RKO hit on Kingston, he began to shout "stupid, stupid" at Kingston.
Goes for the RKO and connects. Kofi Kingston, jaw and face planted.
This ultimately led to Kingston's push being cancelled completely, and this real-life incident would form the catalyst for the feud between the two 9 years later. And number 1, The Rock at No Way Out 2001. There's no wrestling referee more iconic than Earl Hebner, but even he was prone to mistake from time to time. The 2001 No Way Out pay-per-view was main evented by The Rock taking on Kurt Angle for the WWE title. The finish of the match saw The Rock perform a rock bottom on Angle, and Angle wouldn't kick out, but Hebner awkwardly stopped his count at 2. Hebner was visibly confused, as he was clearly unsure what the match finish was supposed to be. Uncharacteristically, The Rock looked furious and he audibly chewed out Hebner in the middle of the ring. The Rock having a tantrum of this nature was very rare, and it certainly shocked the fans at the time. A frustrated Rock then performed another rock bottom on Angle to secure the victory. Angle would discuss the match finish being botched on his Kurt Angle Show podcast, and he stated,
I distinctly remember that Earl probably thought that was the first rock bottom. I believe we hit a rock bottom earlier in the match, and Earl forgot. So the finish was supposed to be the second rock bottom, and Earl thought the second one was the first.
I got
So that's why he hesitated on the count. And I mean, Dwayne The Rock was pissed. He picked me up, rock bottomed me, and told Earl and looked him in the eye and said, "Count the motherfucking finish." He's pissed. Earl's gonna get it when we get back to Gorilla. And but Dwayne, he was mad at the time, and when he got backstage, he cooled him. He didn't really yell at Earl or anything. We all make mistakes.
Well, there you have it, folks. 9 WWE wrestlers who threw a legit tantrum in the ring. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.